Chances are you're editing your creatives the wrong way. In fact, you're focusing on creative editing instead of focusing on the consumer psychology and fundamentals that form the backbone of your ad. I see this mistake time and time again when analyzing new ad accounts or when talking to new media buyers and potential hires at the agency. A lot of people have that within their mind where they think that making an ad is all about making it beautiful or making it stand out or looking at what the competition is doing and imitating based on their best ads. But the truth is, the secret to make your ads work lies much deeper than this. So in today's video, I want to unpack this notion with you and kind of share with you where exactly you need to spend more time on. We're always saying, and a lot of people on YouTube have been saying, just like myself, spend time at the ad level. The ad level is where it's important. Don't look into your account structure. Don't look into your campaign structure. You got to focus on your ad creative. And this is true, but where exactly in your ad creative should you look at? If you don't know who I am, my name is Justin and I'm the founder at Wizo Media, an e-commerce marketing agency specializing in elevating thriving brands by simplifying e-commerce growth. One of the first questions I will encourage you to ask yourself is, why are you making these ads? If you're looking into your current ads, why did you make that ad the way that it is? Did you look at data? Okay, maybe you did. What type of data did you look at? What prompted you to make this ad? And the reason why I'm asking these questions is because of the following. A lot of people will usually look at their ads and they'll look at historical data. So I'm going to talk more from an agency's perspective right here, but I'm going to hear a lot of media buyers sometimes when I ask them, how do you come into a new account and actually create ads? And they're going to tell me, well, I'm going to look at the data in the past, see what worked, see what didn't, and make more of the same creative type. I'm like, okay, so far so good. But then more of the same creative type, what does that mean? Like, what are you going to make from there? They're like, well, I'm going to look at their best selling products, their best creative type. Let's say this is a video. So I'm going to make more video on that same product. Okay, and how are you going to structure this video? Well, probably I'm gonna look into working with some UGC creators and try and make a UGC video. Okay, and how are you gonna script that video to the UGC creator? Well, I'm gonna ask them to talk about the product, list out a problem, maybe even a solution of that same product, and then you need a hook, right? You need a hook. Don't forget about the hook, and then CTA. People regurgitate information that they've heard somewhere or that they've learned to be true, but it's not. This is like talking about a half-empty glass because there is this other part of the spectrum. It's like a double-sided mirror. Okay, now you have the facade, you have a nice-looking ad, you have some form of a recipe or technique or tactic to structure this ad. But that again is a framework. It's not a content. It's almost as if I asked you, what do you do to drink water? And then you tell me, well, I'm gonna go and grab a bottle. But then I'm telling you like, okay, well, what if this bottle is empty? And then you're like, well, that's impossible. Like, I'm gonna go grab a bottle of water. But I'm like, yeah, but have you looked inside the bottle? Is the bottle full? And you're like, well, I don't care. I'm just gonna take the bottle, right? Like, this is a bottle of water. You don't really know what's inside of it. And that's the same thing. If this is a UGC video structure as an example, and I just picked it because from the top of my mind, I think it's gonna work, right? I've got my problem solution, right? The hook is at the top. I've got some social proof in there and a CTA at the end. That's the content, but there's nothing inside, it's empty. So where I'm going with this is the following. There is a specific framework that you need to follow when building an ad. And that's outside of the way that you structure this ad. And this is where you look more at the persona, the actual persona itself that you're targeting. And this, again, kind of splits in two different ways. There's a fork in the road with that method. Because a lot of the brands, once again, will tell me, what's your ideal client? They'll describe me a client that is ideal for them. I'm like, what do your current clients look like? They're like, what do you mean? Like, well, I've just asked you about your ideal client, but what do your current clients look like? They're like, well, probably the same. And most of the time, it's not the case. I'm gonna give you a clear example of that. And I'll try and use the best words as possible to describe the situation, although it is a true situation. We have an underwear brand that sells underwear for women. And that brand, most of the time in their ad creatives, uses hot models. It's good-looking girls. They're placed in a very nice way, sexy, etc. Right? And then you start looking into their tag post on Instagram. You start looking into the pictures that are being sent on their Klaviyo review flows. It's more of your average girl that might have a little bit more weight, not as well put together, might be 2 or 3 sizes up from the model used in the ad. And that is where you have a difference between your ideal versus your current client. And that is something, again, you need to be aware of when creating an ad. And that's why I say creative editing doesn't matter. Because truthfully, you could have the shittiest animation, you could have the worst framework for your ad. Nobody cares about the actual content or at least the framework of it. People care about the backbone of it all. There's this ad I mentioned a couple of times, which is the infamous Rolls-Royce ad from David Ogilvy. Is that a beautiful ad? I mean, look, you have a very simple picture of a Rolls-Royce on there with a big bold headline. That's about it. Is that beautiful in itself? I mean, it's clean, but it's not complicated. It's super simple. One could say there's barely any creative editing at all that was done to this ad. And the truth is, that was such a successful ad because of the message that was found within that. And nowadays, obviously, we can't use copy anymore to really sell your average product. You sell it through the ad creative. So you can still use these same techniques and fundamentals within your creative. And this is where you decide, do I speak to my audience or do I speak to my ideal audience? Because once again, in the past, you had to speak to your current audience. You had to speak to their current self and then help them project themselves with a desired state of mind. That was kind of the role of this copy. It had a goal of converting someone from right now to an ideal state. Whereas now, you have a choice. You either speak to the current state that people are in, which might be a painful state, or you speak to their highest level of desire. So this is a desired state. So there's two ways that you can attack the same concept, either through the negative or through the positive. I'm gonna say that 99% of the time, the pain point is stronger because people feel pain more than they feel a potential desire, right? And that's usually what ends up happening. It is very unlikely that you hear somebody come and tell you that they changed their life around because they had such a wonderful time and such like a wonderful realization. Usually that's not the case. They usually change their life around because something bad happened. Something really bad happened that shook them to their core, so they had to change. They had to change and they were forced to change. And that's what ends up happening for most people. And it's the same thing with ads. If you can tap into a pain point, the pain of not being a certain way, the pain of not looking a certain way, the pain of not feeling a certain way is much stronger than the desire to feel that way, the desire to look that way. You get the gist of it. Now, once you've kind of decided whether you're going to attack the pain point or desire around the same concept, well, let's actually just go back a step, because before you even do that, you have to figure out what are the true market desires, because you either figure out what are the desires or what are the pain points. And when you figure out one, you'll figure out the other, because they're both polar opposites. They're basically a binary choice. What somebody desires, there's a directly correlated pain point to that desire. And usually that is not having this desire. But you don't want to frame that actually in a way where you're talking about not having this thing. I'm going to give you a very quick example because this is starting to be, I think, very macro now that I'm listening to myself. When you frame, let's say, not having a job, right? You have an ad where you're helping people get a job. If you're helping people get a job in an ad, actually, if you frame that in the desired state, it's you want to help people get a job. It's like, would you like to get a job? Would you like to start working today, make some money? That's the desired state. And then on the negative state, you could have at kind of level one, I would say would be, are you tired of not having a job? Are you tired of not making enough money? So that is one way of positioning negative. There's level two, which is even stronger. Are you tired of being jobless? Are you tired of being broke? Are you tired of going back to your family and then telling them, you don't have the money to give your kids what they want? That is kind of the level two, because at that point, you're not having the desire, right? The desire is having a job. The opposite, level one, would be not having a job, right? So having a job is the desire, not having a job is level one pain point. Level two pain point is being jobless and broke. That's a one word that categorizes this pain point. So if you can simplify your pain point into one painful word that you can tap into within your ads messaging. And now if I go back to the creative editing side, usually what people do nowadays is called imitation. It is a technique of copywriting. It is a technique of marketing to imitate what somebody else has done. But usually that is the most basic level of copywriting, or nowadays marketing / creative editing. Imitation is taking an ad or a specific way of structuring an ad that you see elsewhere and implementing that within your own brand. That's again imitation. There's nothing wrong with imitation. It's just usually you can get good results also with imitation, but if you really want to truly tap into your audience and grow to substantial levels, you'll have to move yourself out of imitation. You'll have to move yourself into ideation, where you're the one coming up with the concepts. Because ideation then sparks iteration, because once you ideate and you have good winning concepts, then you can iterate on these initial ideas. And the last point I want to make is about the persona, because that's probably the most important part in your ad, and that's how you ideate. You put yourself in the shoes of your persona. You put themselves in your shoes and you list out, as mentioned before, their deepest desires, and then flip side, their most painful pain points. You figure out what it is that they like outside of your brand, because there's affinities, right? And that's why you got Google Analytics. That's why you got all these analytics website. They help you figure out the affinities of your audience. You might have an overlap where your audience, you're a fashion brand, but all of your audience loves cooking. That's a good point to tap into within your ads. So now you figured out what to include in the ad creative, because look, let's say you're selling clothes, but all of your followers like cooking. You could sell your clothes while the model is cooking. Could be just a simple way of matching two affinities together. So now you're speaking to the right person because you know they like cooking, you know they like fashion. Now you also know their deepest pain points. You also know their deepest desires. Now you got to figure out how aware are they on the solution you offer. Are they solution aware? Are they problem aware? Where exactly are they within that spectrum? So that's the next thing that you figure out. And then the final thing is the sophistication stage. How many other people like you are there in the market? How many other brands out there are selling the same thing as you are? How many people have advertised to the same audience as you are right now? And depending on that, this is how you craft your messaging. This entire process can take you hours to figure out, to write a simple 4 to 5 word headline. Because that headline is not any headline. That headline doesn't say buy now. That headline doesn't say check out my product. That headline doesn't say new collection or interesting vintage clothing. That headline speaks directly to the core pain point or desire of your audience. This is a much more macro video than usual. I'm not going much in depth, or I'm not actually doing like a step-by-step on how to follow through with that advice. If you are interested in seeing such a video, leave a comment down below. I'll be more than happy to actually unveil part of that strategy and thinking process on how you can put that into motion. I've recently done a full Facebook ad tutorial from A to Z. Part of that knowledge I've actually poured into that video. So check this video out. It's probably going to help you kind of figure out the actionable side of all of this advice. And with that being said, one of the first links you're going to find in the description down below is going to be to join our free PCAD community, which has a full comprehensive mini course, again, completely free, on e-commerce economics, e-commerce paid advertising, media buying, creative editing, etc. So check this out down below. And with that being said, if you're watching this video, you are an e-commerce brand owner wanting to work with an agency to create your ad creatives and run all of your paid advertising campaigns, check out the description down below and book in a call with our team. On that note, check out other videos on the channel like the one mentioned earlier about creating a Facebook ads campaign from A to Z. And I'll be seeing you guys in the next video. Cheers.